Sandor Clegane is quite possibly one of the most tragic characters in all of A Song of Ice and Fire, and one of the most tragic in all of literature. For instance, when he was a child, his brother Gregor pushed his face into an open flame, and Sandor could actually feel his flesh melting off the bone. This, along with many other things, makes Sandor one of the most well-developed characters in all of George's storytelling. In this video, I want to discuss the fact of how Sandor Clegane fits the role of Cripple in Crippled's Bastards and Broken Things. Let's discuss this, as well as a theory involving him for Game of Thrones Season 8. I am in fact having a weekly giveaway where you can win this $50 Amazon gift card. All you have to do to enter this contest is make sure you slap a like on this video, leave a comment down below, go ahead and subscribe, and then turn your notifications on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop Game of Thrones videos throughout this long night. Also, check out the gleam.io link down below to enter all the different bonus ways. Now, when we first meet Sandor's character on the TV show, he's shown as pretty intimidating. We see him arrive with the Lannisters in Winterfell, and we're to think he's a bad guy. Then, one of the first things he does is kill Micah, Arya's best friend, so then it's kind of confirmed that we know, okay, Sandor / the Hound may not be one of the best dudes, and we are definitely meant to hate this character. But then, once we see more of him in Season 2, we see him sticking up for Sansa, we realize that maybe there's more to Sandor, and then we're told the story from Peter Baelish about how his face was most likely burned by Gregor. We have even more sympathy for him. All of this sort of comes to a head in the culmination of the battle at Blackwater. We are shown that Sandor is a brave dude and he can definitely fight heroically, even if at the time he's fighting for arguably the wrong side, but once it comes to the fact that he sees that everyone's using wildfire on the battle, he quickly decides that this is not for him and he wants to leave. Tyrion tries to tell him to go back to the battlefield, but he says his famous line, "the king," and storms out. We are then shown even more growth into his character, because instead of just leaving King's Landing immediately, he goes into Sansa's bedchamber and waits for her. He asks her, "Do you want to escape with me?" But since Sansa's a frightened little child, she doesn't know what to do and refuses his offer. Instead, he settles for her singing him a song while he's holding a knife at her. Jumping a bit ahead here, this, along with a few other interactions that they have in the books, develop this theory called Sansan, in which a lot of people think that Sansa and Sandor will end up together, but I honestly, if Sandor's route is to go with marrying a woman, which would be completely out of his character, we haven't seen him show really any interest in women, if he were to end up with someone, I honestly see it being someone like Brienne. They did have that connection when they were fighting each other, and if you even want to call that a connection, they definitely bonded over the fact that they have mutual respect for each other as warriors. We even saw this in Season 7 when they're walking to the Dragon's Pit. They acknowledged the fact that Arya's doing well, and Sandor has this little sly smile on his face, and I took that as the fact that they are officially no longer beefing with each other, and they realized that it was silly because they were ultimately trying to save the same person, Arya Stark. I honestly want Brienne to end up with Jaime, but I feel like if Sandor was to finally find someone, I could see someone like Brienne fulfilling that role more so than Sansa. Sansa and Sandor will never be a thing on the TV show, at least. Getting back on track here, we see the most character development in Sandor during his time with the Brotherhood the first go around. Remember, we catch up with him once Arya is pseudo being held as sort of a prisoner by the Brotherhood without banners, and then Sandor Clegane is brought in with a bag over his head, and he's about to face a trial by combat. After the bag is removed, he ends up recognizing Arya, and we think that, or at least I thought anyway, that Arya was about to rat him out and this was going to guaranteed have him beheaded, but I felt a little bit misconstrued about that because they've been doing such awesome character development all the way up until this point, so I'm like, I kind of like this dude. I hated him back in Season 1, but I kind of like him now. I feel conflicted if he were to just die this way. Come to find out, he ends up splitting Beric Dondarrion in half, which is one of the first times we hear a main character on the TV show mention to Sandor that he's meant for something greater, that the gods have a plan for him. Now, George is definitely one to subvert common character tropes, like Sandor having the hero's journey is not a standard hero's journey. We usually don't start out hating the hero. Usually we feel sympathy for the hero, and then as the hero gains confidence and grows throughout their journey, we grow to love them even more. Sandor is kind of the opposite of that, because we hate him at first, we kind of like him, then we hate him some more, but now we ultimately love him. His time with Arya fully iced over, in my mind, that he's definitely one of my favorites. Now, he's definitely cruel to Arya, and some of the things that he does and some of the ways he goes about doing things is not my favorite, but overall, he's looking out for Arya. He's trying to teach her what this world is really like and what to expect. Just because you're a member from a high-ranking house does not mean jack on the streets of Westeros. What it means is that you have to work even harder to prove yourself. I honestly feel like that if every child in Westeros who is growing up post War of the Five Kings or grew up during the War of the Five Kings, if they had Sandor as a male role model, they might have turned out just okay. I honestly would like to award him as the guardianship role. Like, he looked out for Arya, but he also didn't keep it so sugary that she wouldn't know what she was getting into if she wants to continue venturing on for herself on this mission of vengeance. Just imagine how tough those orphans would be coming from the school of Sandor. I honestly see him and Brienne fulfilling a role of sort of like a trainer. We do know that both of them trained Arya, and look at how amazing she turned out. I honestly think that Sandor and Brienne could even bond further over this, but I would love to see them training groups of northern children and women. Speaking of fighting, Sandor and Arya's time all culminates in the major battle between Sandor and Brienne when they run into each other. That's ironic. They're both trying to save Arya, but for some reason, no one just says, hey, I'm looking out for what's best in the child. Obviously, Brienne sort of does. And then Sandor hits her with that line, if you think that she's going to be safe or if you can keep her safe, well, then you're not qualified to look after her. For lack of better words, which I'm not going to say in this video, he pretty much tells her that she's not fit to look after Arya if you think there's some sort of safe place in Westeros right now. So that is probably one of my favorite lines from Sandor. But what happens after this was gut-wrenching. One of the most gut-wrenching moments. Even when I watch it now, that it's been like the 23rd time of me seeing that fight. This fight is intense. It let me know officially that Game of Thrones does not hold anything back. This is one of the most brutally choreographed fight scenes in all of television history, and of course all of Game of Thrones history, but just in general, it is brutal. I honestly didn't know how the hell to feel about it. I mean, we have this massive dude punching this woman, but this woman is abusing him the same that she's abusing. Like, I'm not one of those people who likes to watch women being abused at all. But this was insane. I honestly thought that Sandor needed a little bit of protection. This showed you how intense Brienne is and how badass she is, and she's not just wearing that suit of armor. She actually is an armored knight who can hold her own. Like, Brienne basically punched this dude from a mountain to the ground. That was insane. That was awesome. And honestly, the fact that he almost died falling off of a mountain lets you know that that's where his character was reborn. Arya disappeared during that fight with Sandor and Brienne, and then she comes back after Brienne leaves, and she finds Sandor curled up against a rock. And the scene that happens between them, how Sandor basically just wants to die and he wants Arya to put him out of his misery, I felt all type of intense feelings then. It was pretty gut-wrenching to watch, and it was sad to watch. Arya ends up leaving him for dead, and he mentions to her that he's going to die unless there's a Maester around the corner. Lo and behold, there was a Maester around the corner. We don't see him for an entire season, but he does make an appearance back in season 6, and this is honestly when he gets reborn into being the crippled individual from the Crippled, Bastards, and Broken Things. He ends up almost dying for doing something that is mostly right. He's trying to protect Arya. He's trying to keep Arya safe. So the fact that he almost dies during this fight trying to save Arya is almost like his rebirth. He ends up getting saved because, yes, the gods have a plan for him, and Brother Ray tries to instill that into Sandor. He explains to him that killing is not the only thing that Sandor was meant for. He was meant to do great things, and killing is one of those things, yes, but there's more to life than just doing so. So in these, this short episode that Brother Ray is a part of it kind of feels like Sandor is taking a vow of non-violence. It's a bit different in the novels. Sandor hasn't exactly remade an appearance, and a lot of people think that this character that Brienne runs into in the Quiet Isle, called the Gravedigger, is secretly Sandor. She notices that he is bigger than her and that he walks with a limp, which kind of fits the description of the last time we saw Sandor, which in the novels, Arya ends up leaving him for dead after he succumbs to infection from not treating his wounds. I feel like Brother Ray's death definitely happened for a reason on the TV show. It needed to motivate Sandor to go and do the right thing. If Brother Ray had spent enough time with Sandor, he may have completely made it to the point where Sandor no longer sees violence as an option and just accepts death. But that's not the world that we live in. That's not Westeros. Accepting death is never a good thing, unless there's no other option. But with Sandor, he had plenty of fight left to give. So his death ultimately motivates Sandor to continue down the right path. Obviously, the first thing he does is go back on Brother Word's saying by going out and seeking revenge and violence against those others who wronged him, but it leads him to the right path, that right path being the Brotherhood. They're one of the few people that can actually get it across to Sandor that he was meant to do great things. The gods have chosen him. He would have not normally had survived to fall off of the mountain if it was not for the Lord of Light wanting him to do greater things. So that's pretty much all we see of him in Season 6, is that he's set on a journey heading up north. Then in Season 7, we catch up with him quickly. They're already in the north, and they stop at this place where him and Arya actually met a father and a daughter, a farmer rather, and Sandor ends up robbing him and sort of leaving him for dead. It's ironic that they end back up at this place because he realizes that the father and the daughter died. So he ends up pulling a full-on gravedigger and buries these people. It's interesting because I honestly think that this is a subtle wink from the TV show, hinting at the fact and sort of spoiling the fact that Sandor actually is the gravedigger in the novels. I think one of the ways he finds peace is by burying these people. That's the obvious way for him to not necessarily bury the past, because you can't 100% forget where you came from. You'll not know where to go, but it's a way to laying his past to rest and knowing that he's got great deeds still yet to come in the future. What happens after that is key insane for the plot of Season 7. Sandor ends up looking into the flames and sees that they must go north of the wall, and there's something leading them there. They have to figure out what that mission is. There's an arrow-headed mountain, and they have to go and find this mountain. Now, this is interesting because if you're keeping track here, if you remember at the beginning of the story, Sandor Clegane was deathly afraid of fire, and that's actually one of the reasons of why he deserted the crown. Fire was too much around him on that battlefield, and he had to get away. He also, back then, only thought about himself and did not care for anyone but himself. It's so much of a turnaround now in the story that he's no longer afraid of fire, and all he can do is think about other people. Is that not one of the greatest character arcs ever? Now, I know I'm really simplifying it here, but Sandor is definitely one of the most well-written characters in all of A Song of Ice and Fire. You can tell that George really enjoyed writing his chapters, and you can tell that Dan and Dave enjoy retelling that story on screen for us. So leading into Game of Thrones Season 8, the last we see of Sandor, he's present at the meeting in the Dragon Pit between Cersei, Daenerys, and Jon Snow. This is hilarious because as soon as they arrive, Sandor takes no time at all, walks straight up to his brother, and tells him how he is uglier than he remembers. And also, he sort of hints to us and, everyone who reads the books that there will be a Clegane Bowl 2.0, and that this time, there's not going to be anything to stop them. He tells his brother, you know what's coming for you. Now, a lot of people can interpret that as he's saying that he's directly coming for his brother, or you can also interpret it as Gregor knows that death is coming for him because he should have died during that fight with the Viper, aka Oberyn Martell. This next part does in fact contain spoilers. If you do not want to know anything about the filming aspect of Game of Thrones Season 8, go ahead and click out of the video right now. Leave a comment down below on my thoughts on Sandor so far, and also please slap a like on this. With recent spoilers popping up, we do know that the cast has recently gone to Iceland to film. Now, Sandor was not part of this cast that went supposedly north of the wall, but that just means that his scene could involve heavy CGI, and he's in fact filming indoors for the use of a green screen. Also, breaking news as of today is the fact that Kit Harington was spotted in full Jon Snow regalia filming in Dubrovnik. Dubrovnik has famously been used for the filming of King's Landing. Now, we saw a few days ago that they had a set built out there, and there was a Lannister flag hanging in the background. We weren't exactly sure what that means, but now Jon Snow has in fact been spotted in King's Landing, and David Nutter has also been spotted on the set. This means that this will be from episode 4. This is honestly not a real good sign. When you add this on top of the fact that Winterfell was being burned a few days ago, I honestly think that what may happen in episode 3 may be the burning of Winterfell. Cersei sends the Golden Company to sack Winterfell, Jon Snow is captured and then taken down south to King's Landing. All of this happening before the major battle in which the Night King is killed. So if Jon Snow's in King's Landing, how the heck would he get out? It looks as though from these images that he's by himself and he's being walked with someone who's in a hooded robe. Before I forget, these spoilers were brought to my attention by winteriscoming.net and Reddit/freefolk. Go check out the links down below and you can read the article for yourself. Let's get back on track. Now, I honestly A lot of people were speculating on this being, a Night's Watch member, but why would Jon Snow take Night's Watch member to King's Landing, or why would Jon even go to King's Landing willingly this close to the last few episodes of the series, like this close to killing the Night King? He wouldn't, so he had to have been captured. I honestly think that this could be one of the priests that Euron uses in order to make predictions and help him with his magical quest. So I honestly think that this could be one of the priests that Euron has that drinks Shade of the Evening, escorting Jon Snow to his prison blockade. If you'll notice, Jon Snow's hair does look very disheveled, and one thing's for certain, his demeanor is definitely terrified. So I honestly think that Jon Snow has in fact been captured by this, and I personally think that Euron has done so, and he's having one of his Shade of the Evening priests escort Jon Snow to the prison cells beneath the Red Keep. Now this is super exciting to think about because we're coming full circle. Remember, Jon Snow's father, Ned Stark. Now I know I paused there for a second because we know that Ned Stark is not really Jon Snow's father. We know that his father is Rhaegar, but when you look at it as an adoption standpoint, Ned Stark will always be Jon Snow's father, just like Jon Snow will always be a member of House Stark. He will always be Jon Stark. Yes, he is Targaryen, but in his mind, he will always be a Stark. So we have Jon and Ned in the same cell back in Season 1 and now in Season 8. Except for this time, Jon Snow will in fact get rescued. We need him for the final battle, and we need him to honestly rule over Westeros when it's all said and done. Now, there are many likely options of how a rescue could take place. If you remember, Theon actually went on a rescue mission to go and rescue Yara at the end of last season. I don't think the timing's going to work out where he'll be in King's Landing in order to rescue Jon Snow at the same time, but it's definitely a possibility. I do see that someone who has a history of saving Starks and rescuing them is Sandor Clegane. Sandor also wants to go back to King's Landing to fight his brother. So it would be definitely possible for Sandor to step up and say, hey, look, you guys want Jon Snow rescued. I already have a mission to go and kill him. Let me take Arya. We'll go take care of Gregor and then rescue the boy Jon Snow. Now, I know that sounds a bit crazy and I kind of just leap there, but it's just what makes the most sense. We did see that Sandor tell his brother, you know what's coming for you, and yes, you can take that as death, but you could also take that as Sandor himself coming back to King's Landing for him. Jon Snow getting captured is a perfect opportunity to exercise. The reason why I say Arya is going to go with him, maybe even volunteer to do so, is because she's got a few people on her list that she wants to take out in King's Landing. Those mainly being Cersei and Gregor, and then I honestly wouldn't be surprised if she added Euron to her list just for capturing Jon Snow. One thing that we all have to remember is that the Golden Company is in Essos, and so is Daario Naharis. We have yet to see anything about Michael Usman, the actor who plays him, filming, and I know he has one last role to play in Game of Thrones Season 8. I would not be surprised if he came over with the Golden Company to Westeros and played a part in capturing Jon Snow. Just imagine that look on Daenerys' face when she finds out that her new lover, her new king at that, is being captured by her former lover who she scorned by leaving Essos. Jumping back to Sandor here, this all ties into the giant big knot that makes Sandor a cripple. Now, if you want to go for literal representation, he was actually wounded after that fight with Brienne, and he's walked with a limp ever since, therefore making him a cripple. But I honestly think that all three of these titles, Cripples, Bastards, and Broken Things, are all interchangeable. Sandor Clegane fits all three of them. He's definitely a broken thing. He's been a broken thing since he was a small child. He's never been a complete person. He was never given that upbringing of two parents raising someone to become the best person like many of the Stark children has. As far as the crippled, he's been wounded so many times, he fits that as well. And then Bastard, not technically because he, was born into a house and he had a father and a mother, but his father was killed, poisoned arguably, by his brother Gregor, and his sister mysteriously disappeared. So honestly, his brother Gregor most likely killed his entire family, leaving him a bastard. You guys let me know what you think about this theory down below. Do you think it's a possibility that Sandor and Arya may go on this rescue mission to rescue Jon Snow? Or do you think that Jon Snow went to King's Landing willingly, which doesn't make any sense, and maybe Jon was just going there to shoot the breeze with Cersei, even though I highly doubt it. But you guys let me know what you think about all that down below in the comment section. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Who do you want covered next for the Bastard title? Do you want Theon or do you want Gendry covered? Let me know down below in the comment section. I want to thank you all again so much for watching. If you could please slap a like on this video, the like goal will be 423. Also, if you want to enter into my contest to win this $50 Amazon gift card, the winner of which will be chosen on February 22nd, all you have to do to enter that contest is leave a like on this video, comment down below, make sure you're subscribed, then go ahead and turn the notifications on so that way you get alerted every time I drop Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. Also, super special thank you to every single member of my Patreon family, especially to Mario and Terry. They are the executive producers of this video, and without every member of my Patreon family, this kind of content would not be possible. I want to thank you all again so much for watching. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunt's Reviews. If you've made it this far into the video, translate this phrase right here. If you can tell me what this says, I'll give you a super dap.